Making earnings is not as easy as it once was, but it's still very possible. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you the current easiest way to make earnings, whether that's your first time or you just want to earn more consistently. The easiest way to earn for the foreseeable is going to be any Victory Cup format. Currently in Season 4, that's the console Victory Cups, but also the new Reload Quick Cups. It's almost impossible to earn in FNCS, but for these Victory Cup formats, all you need to do is make finals and then win a game to make earnings. And that's exactly what we're going to be learning in this video, how to make it through opens consistently and then how to get your win in finals. But also how to do it based on your playstyle, whether that's passive and always playing for endgame or being aggressive and W keying. First of all, we're going to be looking at how you can make it through open formats as a passive team. For this example, we're going to be looking at this EU duo that was playing NA on 100+ ping. They only got 12 elims, but they managed to win 2 games and then get 2 top 3s, which is insane. For their drop spot, they land this base to the left of Supernova, and it's perfect for a passive team. Because it's not POI, they're not heavily conned, and they were actually uncontested in the 4 out of 4 games. And this base has a lot of metal, but you can also buy crash pads, meaning they won't need to get this mid game and risk getting pushed, or they won't need to force a fight themselves to try and get a refresh. When they pull zone, they immediately prioritize getting dead side. In this case, dead side will be the top of the map because the zone pulled north. They go here to top up their materials and loot, and the benefit of doing it dead side is they're way less likely to run into a team. And because they've now got everything they need, they just sit in a bush to conserve everything. Psychoma always talks about getting comfortable doing nothing, and so many people struggle to do this. If they kept running around the map when they don't need to, they would risk getting seen by another team. They would then lose heals and materials and be in a worse position for the rest of the game, or in the worst case, they'll get eliminated in a game that had good potential. But it's rare that you can go a whole tournament without running into anyone and getting pushed. Even though you aren't going to be taking as many fights, you still need to practice your defensive box fighting skills for when this happens. You can tell this player has because he immediately does the first fundamental, which is making space. He then hits a big counter shot on the opponent when he makes the mistake of double swinging on his wall, and then this leads to a kill, which makes it a 2v1. For refreshes, you'll be surprised at how much naturally just falls onto your plate. In the background, I'm going to be showing 2 refreshes from 2 different games that our team was able to get that gifted them max materials going into endgame, but they barely had to do anything for them. This shows you don't have to be an aggressive team and risk dying to get refreshes. If you just stay in the game long enough by using your current builds and rotation, then an opportunity might fall right to you. Another way they prevent the risk of needing refreshes is they preserve their mats really well. In endgame, they're still claiming dead side, which means they can cheap tarp and only need to block off one direction. And they make use of their rotation even if it's a short one that only takes them a few boxes in front, like this crash pad. Because if they would have tarped this, it would have used a few hundred materials. This cheap tarp, popularized by Rapid, is also really good. You just fizz and place floors only, bouncing off them. We're going into endgame so stacked and then preserving this through the moving zones. There's no wonder this team managed to outlive most of the lobby and place really consistently. Now we're going to be looking at the flip side and how you can easily make it through opens if you're a good fighter and comfortable W keying. For this example, we're going to be going over to EU and looking at how Spectral dropped a 47 kill win, which gave him over half the points needed to qualify. If you're a good fighter, why not land for the best loot? Spectral decides to land Rangers. Due to this, they're able to get the best loot, and it's going to be much better than their opponents, so it will give them the advantage going into every fight. The easiest way to win more fights in team game modes like duos is by using a method called pinch. What Spectral is doing here. It's basically when you and your teammate pressure the opponent from opposite sides, which is the hardest thing to defend against. This works especially well in these open lobbies, as the lower the elo, the less people can cope with it. They often take a lot of damage, or they're forced to make a mistake. Like this player here who tries to run at one of the players but then gets taken out by the opposite side. However, not all fights will pan out like this, and sometimes you're not going to be fighting with your teammates and there may be individual fights. You may have heard the pros refer to this as just winning your ones, because as long as you win your individual fight, it's then going to go to a 2v1. As you can see, this is what's happening in Spectral's fight, but where he's such a good solo fighter, it actually works in their favor. When it comes to endgame, getting kills is more of a priority for them than keeping their win condition, which is high ground. As you can see, they'll happily jump off of height to secure a kill. Obviously, you wouldn't do this in finals because the kills are worth nothing, but in these open lobbies, each kill is worth 2 points, which may not sound like a lot compared to a win, but in this endgame, they were able to get an additional 15 kills, which is another 30 points. And this can easily be the difference between making it to finals or not qualifying. So in opens, you can definitely play more risky if it's going to result in more points, because that's what matters most. Now we're going to look at how passive players can still make earnings in finals. For this example, we're going to be looking at this duo who managed to win a game on EU with only 3 kills. They go to land at this low-key gas station but are contested, so they decide to play even more passive and land only on a few chests. This is a smart decision because you only get 3 games in finals, so the worst thing to do is die of spawn. And as long as they're alive, they can go and scrap loot to recover their game. Sometimes you can get really lucky doing this because the surrounding areas are all unlooted. That's exactly what happens this game when they discover no one landed at Supernova. Because they're late looting and zone pools max, they decide to tank Storm and wrap all the way dead side. Prodoxy done this exact rotate in his last game to win FNCS Grand Finals. Whereas if they just white line rotated, they would have had to come through all this congestion and they would have been scuffed for the rest of the game, or in a worst case, they would have been eliminated. However, on the next few zones, they scout and go early, invest in some of their crash pads. Because of this, they're able to get ahead of all this congestion that haven't yet rotated. Due to this, there's less risk of getting scuffed on rotate or dying, but it means they're also first to claim a good position. This allows them to get surge tags on their enemies rotating in behind them as they're only just above the threshold. And while Tenzi's doing this, his duo is refarming the building below to get as many mats as possible going into endgame. I told you guys earlier about how many refreshes come as gifts, and that's exactly what happens here when a player gets beamed out this sky and this duo just lands straight on it. They both have 0 kills, but now they both have max materials each and are probably the most stacked team going into this endgame. If you have the materials to do so, you should always play on a higher layer like this duo does. Even more so this season, as it's going to be easier to use your rotation, be in fizz and crash pads. Claiming low can be of benefit if you do it in the last zones, but trying to play it in these first move-ins is such a bad idea. Just look how congested it is, and most of these teams are shambles with no materials and will jump in your box at the first chance. Because this duo was so stacked and they done well preserving, they managed to build all the way to the last zone. But now they're out of materials, and because of this, I reckon a lot of you would have started playing heal off, but it's way too early. This duo knows that and they need a refresh, so all they do is simply spray in together in someone's box. If we watch from the enemy's POV, there's nothing really he could have done. From this, they get the builds to make a few more boxes all the way to where zone closes. That means he'll get storm sickness after all these guys that went and played heal off early. Only the player above him stayed in the circle for a second longer, but he didn't have 6 medkits like our player. So he goes for the kill instead, but our player smartly crash pads out so he can remain ungriefed. He then wins the game, securing his team $400 with only 3 kills. On the other hand, our aggressive final winners are French pros Akira and Skyjump, who got an 11 kill win, which doesn't seem like a lot, but these kills are worth 0 points. So let's find out how and why they got them. They land way more high risk, high reward at OXR and go straight in being aggressive, getting tags. They only settle for the best loot, and once looted are really stacked. When a team sneaks into their POI, unlike the passive team, they crash pad straight on their head and start aggressively fighting them. Most pros have such little pressure but such high confidence, which plays a huge advantage in these fights. Whereas they're fighting players like this who rarely make finals, and it could be their first earnings, so they're super nervous. You've probably experienced this effect before when you've just given up in a cup and started playing reckless, but you end up playing better. One thing to note is although they're top fighters, they don't get all their surge through keying. They know when to pack it in and just get traditional long range tags instead. They take a really good power position here, and it's no wonder they get so much surge. They base up high on a mountain, but they're also based up edge, so they can hold all these teams rotating in. You should really strive for this type of composure. Kira gets knocked by full damage here, and a team instantly jumps on it. But instead of getting out of there and leaving his teammate, Skyjump decides to hold the builds and revive at the same time, getting Akira up. If he would have died here, there's no way Skyjump would have gone on solo and won this game like they did. But instead of panicking and going into survival mode, getting even more scuffed, they realize the chances of them winning this game have dropped significantly, so they need a refresh. And from a few seconds ago where their game was nearly over, they decide to key this duo on low ground and end up killing them both, getting max materials. They're now one of the most stacked teams and favorites to win this game. Unlike opens where you're surviving for them extra placement points, finals is all about finding them win conditions. Again, if they didn't get this refresh as the last chance, they would have died because the zone pulls back up the mountain and they had no HP or materials. How many of you would have tried to rotate through all this congestion? But the smart and good endgame players aren't afraid to take storm damage, and you'll often see them wrap around the builds like this duo does when they fizz crash around all these players. They then have to invest 2 medkits to get back to full HP, which a lot of you wouldn't feel comfortable doing because you're trying to save these for heal off. But these are experienced players and know that if they're too greedy and don't make these kind of plays, that they won't even make it to the heal off. In this game, height's strong and there's no real opportunity for this duo to take it, so they do the next best alternative, which is claim all of low ground. And when you're running out of mats like these guys, it's going to be one of the best places to be because of the refresh opportunities. It's where all the shambles players are going to be, and even if they drop you cypher mats only, this could be the difference between getting to them final zones and reducing storm sickness. That's exactly what Skyjump does here, and there's only one player that stays in the the circle longer than him, but unfortunately doesn't have all the heals Skyjump has and loses the heal off. If you found the video helpful, please leave a like and consider using code EBENTS, as it's the best free ways to support the channel. I've got way more content like this on the way, so make sure to click here to subscribe and turn on notifications. And also make sure to watch this video if you want to W key like Vigo.